Okay, good morning. Welcome everybody, and thank you for your interest on participating on the documentation of OntoUML models. This is a really welcome contribution to the OntoUML community, and we are really happy to have you here with us. I'll be now showing you how to set up the whole basic infrastructure to document models with some tips. If you have any questions, you can do that in the live that I'm recording now on Discord, or you can also post those later when this is uploaded and it's available online. So I hope that you see now the GitHub page, which is where I want to begin our setup for this process. Since the idea here is that we are going to be using the OntoUML plugin to document these models, and we are going to be using, we are going also to be using the repository. So the repository is available at UNBC core. Let me just get this here. So we have all the links ready to share with you. Okay, so let's say that you're starting now. The first thing that I would invite you to do is to, in order to submit a contribution, you have to have a GitHub account. So let's start by creating this GitHub account. So sign up. Here, this is the GitHub website, the main page, github.com. I'm going to enter here the email address. Just a second here. Okay, that we are using. We are using this email address for this event here. So here, let me see. Okay. And here you have to set up your GitHub account. Is basically a basic information, just your email, a password, and a username for people to see you online. Okay, in this case I cannot use a dot here, so let me just change that. And okay, you don't need that. So basically here it's asking me if I want to receive product updates. I'm not interested in that. And it's going to ask us to do some proving that we are not robots. So spiral, I think it's this one and this one. Okay, create the account. Now I should have received via email confirmation code. I can just send it here. So 7. Okay. 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 Okay, we can skip this personalization step now because it's not necessary for the creation of the account. And once you have this your account created, this is when you are logged in, this is the page that you're going to see. And if you want to see your profile, you can use the name of your account after the GitHub. So this is the first step for us to start, is to have a GitHub account, because the idea is that we are going to have a copy of the OntoUML Models repository on our GitHub, or personal GitHubs. So I want now to come to the OntoUML Models repository, which is available at github.com /unbccore/OntoUML Models. And I'm going to come to code, and I'm going to come to fork. So the idea is that you're going to have your version of the repository where you can make your changes and later submit your modifications back to the main repository, you have to come here and click on fork, which is where you are going to have the creating the copy, your own copy of the repository, and having it connected to the original one. So let me just refresh the page because now I have logged in with the account that we have just created. I'll come here to fork. It's going to take a few seconds to finish this process. So now you see that I have within my account the same repository. It has exactly the same contents, but it's a safe space for me to make modifications and then submit back to the original repository. For that, if I come now to my personal account and I refresh the page, I have one repository here, which is the fork of OntoUML Models, a copy of OntoUML Models. So far, if you have any questions, let me check on Discord. I'm looking at the general support channel, so if you want to submit any questions, please do so in that text channel. I will just type it here so you know where I look at. Okay, now the next step is we are using a tool called Visual Paradigm, which allows us to create these UML diagrams, which is the base that we use for OntoUML. We can download this tool at visual-paradigm.com. And this tool, we use it only as a front end for us to document OntoUML, to build OntoUML models. We have a dedicated plugin for that. And if you are a student and you are using the Visual Paradigm not for commercial purpose but for educational ones, for learning, you can download its free version, which is called the community version. So you come to try now. We are going to see this page. You don't want to download it from here. You want to go a little bit lower and go to Get Community Edition, free for non-commercial use. You click here, then you can download the Visual Paradigm with the Community Edition. I have this downloaded already, but once you download it, it's going to ask you to submit your email to get a free license for this limited Community Edition. I will not be going through that because at the moment I would have to uninstall the Visual Paradigm and it would take a while. So I will come from here direct to the point of where I have Visual Paradigm style on my machine. And by the way, this is compatible with all three major operating systems. So you can use it on Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. I'm using this here on Windows, Windows 10. So once I have the Visual Paradigm downloaded, I will I'll see this, so Visual Paradigm Community. And this is the first, and this is the page, the application that's going to open. The next step that we need to do in order to document these models is that we have to have the OntoUML plugin for Visual Paradigm, the ontouml-vp plugin. You can get this plugin at github.com /ontouml/ontouml-vp-plugin, which is the repository at the OntoUML account. When you come here for the first time, you have to download it from our releases. So you go to releases, you go to the latest one, you download it as a zip file. So here I just have downloaded it. It's on my downloads folder. So here I have 2 copies of it, so I'm going to just delete one of them to not confuse you. Okay, And now that I have this zip file, I can come to Visual Paradigm and I can install it. So going to help, this help tab on the top, I go to install plugin. So the plugin is just a folder containing the files that we need. We can install it in different ways. If you are coming from the Visual Paradigm, the first installation, let's say, you can install from the zip. But just in case you have already a very old version of the plugin, you may need to do this process manually. So I'm going I'm going to install it the first time with you. So you go to install from a zip, you go to next, you select the file, so the zip that we have just downloaded from the ontouml-vp-plugin repository, and you're going to go to open, and it's going to tell you the installation is complete, and please restart the application. If we do not restart the Visual Paradigm, we are not going to be able to use the plugin. So I do this, I close Visual Paradigm, and I open it again. So okay, now that we have opened it again, we have a new tab on the top called Plugin, where we have the options for the OntoUML plugin. Let me just, to those who have an old installation of Visual Paradigm, I want to show you something. You should, we have a feature now for you to update your plugin. So if you come to plugin and you go to update plugin, this option here, you can select which release of Visual Paradigm you have installed. So instead of having to go to that menu that I have just shown you, you can update your plugin on this menu. You can just select whichever version you have. If your version is an older version like the 030, you should not have this option of updating your plugin. Instead, you have to do this manually. To do so, you come to install plugin, you can copy the path to the folder where you have the plugins. You can go to your browser, you can paste that path, and you are going to access the Visual Paradigm plugin folder. So you're going to replace, you have to delete the folder that you find here. So in your case, it should be ontouml-vp-plugin 030 or something like that. You have to delete that folder before installing again the Visual Paradigm as I have shown in the beginning. But it's just in case you have a quite old installation. We have this feature of updating easily for quite a while. Okay, now that you have the plugin, you are going to have the assists that we have implemented designed for OntoUML. So the first thing that I actually like to do is to, on this dash menu, add the things that I use the most on Visual Paradigm that make my life easier. So in here, I can access many features of Visual Paradigm, including the features from the plugin, with some issues of scaling here. I apologize for that. But in here, I can add stuff like the check model option. It's going to look ugly now, but it's going to be better in just a second. So if I want to add this, right-click and configure dash menu. Okay, now it's scaled back. Things that I often use is like the undo process, the undo and redo. I use the create new diagram quite often as well, and I also use the export options quite often. So exporting the diagram that I have open, exporting all the diagrams. Things like this can save some time. And from the plugins, I also like to have the one that we are going to use here on this process is the export to JSON, which is a feature that we are going to use on this process. and I'll keep this readily available here. So just to show you that we have the plugin working, I'm going to create a new diagram. We create class diagrams in this process, and I can give a name to it. So my first diagram, and it's going to open here. If you're not familiar with this kind of tools, bear in mind that we have two different concepts here. We have the concept of the diagram and the concept of the model. So if I come here, I have already one class diagram, which is my first diagram, and I have no classes. So I'm going to create a class here. I can use both the menu to the left, or I can also click on the items that are going to be shown on the screen to do this process. So I can click on class, I can click on the diagram, I can give a name to it, like person, and now I can give an OntoUML stereotype to it by right-clicking on the class, and I can select here some stereotype like kind. So person here is a kind. Oh, let's say that I want to create a second class for a specialization like student. I can use again the menu to the left, but it's easier for me to double click on the diagram. So I double click, I select here just a regular class. I can give it the name now, student. I want to say that student is a specialization of. So here I have both the options to click on the generation to the left, or if I hover over the class, there is this resource catalog here. So I can drag this to the other class, and I can select the generalization option for me to create this generalization. Now that there is the generalization here, when I click in student and I right-click to suggest stereotypes, we are going to have a subset of stereotypes that we can use, because there are the rules of OntoUML that are observed in this feature of suggest stereotypes. I can override this with this first menu, but the second one with suggestions is the preferable one. And in this case, student is a row. And now I would like to say that we have another class of enrollment connected to student. So I can hover it again, and I can drag this to the side. Now this solid line is what we call association. I'm going to, when I click, you notice that I don't have another class here. I'm just dragging it to an empty space. Now, when I drag, I can create the class as I create the association as well. So I just create the class. Let's call this class enrollment, because I want to make it a relator. So I right-click on enrollment. I go to the stereotypes. I make it a relator. And now I have to make this association here into what we call mediation. I right-clicked it. I'm going to come here to the suggest stereotypes, and it's going to give me some options of possible associations between these classes of row and relator. I want to create a mediation relator, and notice that in here it's telling me inverted. Why is it doing so? It's just a warning, because in OntoUML these associations, they have a direction, and this is important for us to process the model. So it's just that when you click this, it's going to, behind the scenes, going to automatically invert for you the association, and it's going to tell you, because this is a kind of modification in your model. So I click here, it's going to give me a warning that this action will invert the direction of some associations that are selected, and this is a modification. You can proceed if you want to do so, and you can also disable this warning. Okay, and this is created with the default values of the association. If you want to do modifications like this, you can even select many things and right-click, and you're going to get like the options for all of them at once. You don't have to do one modification at a time. So going back to this left side here, where I have both the Model Explorer and the Diagram Navigator, notice that I can have here in my diagram many copies of person. I'm just copy and pasting, by the way. Even though I have many copies, I have many views of the class, on the model I have only one concept of person. I have only one concept of enrollment. This is a separation of view and model that we have. Just bear that in mind and keep these two, one of these two options here for you to easily access your model and to know what you have created already. So, okay. Now, what we have done so far. We have, by the way, if you have questions, please feel free to interrupt me at any point on Discord. If we have what we have achieved so far, we have created an account on GitHub, which is here. We have made a fork of the OntoUML Models project. We have our own copy of it. This is online, by the way. This is for you. You can think of GitHub as a kind of folder that you have online, but you have fixed whenever you send your files online, you have a version of it that we refer to as a commit. And we have the visual paradigm installed. Now what we need to do is to have on the computer itself a copy of this folder from GitHub. So let's do so using, for this we can use the terminal, but this is not too much of a friendly solution. I recommend you to use some GitHub client. And GitHub itself provides a client for us. So let me just go back here. If you want to download a client, you can search for, okay, you can search for GitHub client. And GitHub desktop is going to be the first option that's going to appear. You can download this client. It's the one that I'm going to use. I'm going to show you now. But you can use the others. I personally use one called GitKraken. But all of these clients, they have the same kinds of functionalities. So if you download and install the GitHub desktop and you open it, this is what you're going to have. And I want to come here to the, let me just see here. I should be able to add what I'm doing here. Let's say I'll come to File. I'm going to clone a repository. So what's the idea? We have an online version of the repository on our personal GitHub account, which is called also OntoUML Models because it's a fork of the original one. When we want to have a copy of the repository in our machines, we call it a clone. We are going to clone this repository. So I want to clone a repository. I'm going to get this from my GitHub account, so I will just sign in. So once I sign in, I will be able to see these my repositories on the client. I don't have to do any other kind of setups of copying URLs and pasting here. But this is going to continue the login process with the browser. So in my case, I'm already logged in on my GitHub account. So bear that in mind when you are going to log in on the GitHub client. So I'll continue to the browser. So I'm using here the Chrome browser in this case. It's going to ask you for access to your GitHub account, and I'm going to authorize this. Okay, then I'm going to open again this feature on the GitHub desktop client. And now I'm logged in. So let's check again. File, clone repository. Now it's able to see the repositories that I have on my machine. It's nice to keep track of where you're saving these things on your computer. In my case, I'm going to use documents, the documents folder. I have created a folder called Git, another folder called GitHub, but the organization is up to you. You just have to know where this folder is. Then we have like in here, I like to create a folder referring to my account on GitHub. So my account is OntoUML Developers. This is just a personal preference. I'm going to use this folder. So the idea is, if I tell GitHub to use this folder to clone my the repository to, it's going to create another folder with the same name as the repository. Usually that's the default behavior. So I'm going to select this. Okay, oh, in Windows I have to create the name here, so I'm going to give the name OntoUML Models. Just create the folder, I have selected it. No, I just want to use this. It's not allowing me to select this. Okay, let me just try it again. So I'll go to Documents, Git, GitHub, OntoUML Developers, and select. Let me just because I know that's going to, if I do like I've just told you, I'm going to create the folder twice. So let me just delete this folder that I have created. OntoUML Models. So, okay, now it should be okay. We are cloning this repository into the folder that I have just created. Let's clone. Okay. So let's just continue here. And we should have, now what this screen is going to show us is what modifications we have made to the folder, and it's going to allow us to add a new settlement, a new version to the repository in the form of a, how can I say this, in the form of a commit with subversion. So if you have here the changes, we haven't done any changes for now, but we have here the history of the changes that were made in the past. So in each of these things to the left is like a commit. It tells you what files were modified. You can check this here, like this plus sign is an addition. You also have modifications and deletions in other versions as well. So this here, for instance, is a file that was modified. And the benefit for us is that we can keep track of what are the modifications between each version. So in this version, everything that's in red is a deletion, and it's replaced in the same lines of this text file with the things that are in green. So we already have the Visual Paradigm setup, we have the GitHub setup, and we can start documenting a new ontology. And for that, let's access the folder. So Git, GitHub, OntoUML Developers, OntoUML Models. So we can check now the instructions from the GitHub page from the OntoUML Models page. We have a whole week for that, so let me just access again on the original repository. Let me close some stuff here that we are not using, because I want to go to the instructions. So to access the instructions on how to contribute to this repository, we can come to the week page. And here we are going to have the instructions on how to contribute, the questions that are frequently asked, the list of models, and so on. So let me open the how to contribute and the list of models. The idea is that you can contribute with your own models, but we already have a list of ontologies, of works that we want to document. And you can pick one ontology from one work from here, and we are going to go through these instructions here. At this point, we have already done the steps of forking the model and making a clone and creating our version of it. We have now to select an ontology from this list. I have already picked one up, which is this one, for us to, so a core ontology for decision making. I want to let people know that I'm working on this one, so let me just find it here. So it's here, it's not started yet, so I'm going to add this as in progress by myself, Claudia. Nice to meet you, by the way. And now I can start the process here. So what I do is now, let me do it like this. The first thing that I do personally is to get the name of the ontology and go to Google Scholar in order to get the basic information, the reference information for the ontology. So in here, if I have found here the ontology online, I'm going to get this is in Italian, so if you are using it in English, there's like other versions. You can access the other versions of the same paper. I'm doing this because I want to show you something that I think is interesting. The interesting thing here is that this paper, this paper is not available on is available on CU, so this is not we won't have much information on the citation, but one of the things that we need is the citation entry for this paper. And I get the citation from clicking on this quotation symbol here, this cite option, and I come to the bibtec option because we have to have a bibtec file. I usually reuse the GitHub. Let me see, maybe I have a more complete version here on CU. So let me check, bibtec, yes. So I usually reuse this bibtec style from Google Scholar, which is composed of the last name of the first author, the year of the publication, and the first word of the paper. You may have clashes between versions, but this usually is safe to use, so I'm going to use this because my concern now is that we have to create a folder for this ontology that we are going to contribute with. So I'm going to use this entry. It's the style that we have adopted in the repository. So I can come here. Okay. I'm going to name the folder as Quizart 2020 core. By the way, please do not submit the paper itself, because papers, they usually have copyrights agreements between the author and the publisher. So we are only documenting the ontology. We are not uploading copies of the papers themselves. And in here, I'm going to add all the files that I'm going to use in this process. So what files do we need to have? So if we go to the contributions, we have this description here. Let me increase the size of the text a little bit so you can read with me. So in any contribution, we must have these files and folders. We have to have a file for the metadata that we are going to collect. We have to submit the visual paradigm file with this specific name. We have to export the ontology to JSON with this specific name. We need to have the reference to the papers that we are using to document this ontology. We have to save the original diagrams, and new diagrams as well. So I will start doing so. As you have seen, we have the folder already with this name here, which is, in my case, is Wizardy 2020 core. Let's start making the files. I come here and I will create a couple of text documents. So this first one here, I'm going to call metadata dot YAML. So this is a YAML file. I'm going to explain soon what it is. What does it mean? Let me just create a copy of it just to reuse the file because I want to create now a bib file, and this bib file is the references.bib. And the other files I'm going to create with Visual Paradigm. Let me just check one thing here because I'm on Windows and I want to show the extension of the file name because I think it's hiding the file extension. So view file name extensions. Yeah, it was hiding it from me. So I want here to remove this dot text. Okay. Nope. I want to remove the dot text. Okay. So let me show you on. I don't have a text editor here. I do have a text editor. I'm going to use it, but I did not show you how to install it. For these kinds of files, I personally like to use a text editor for developers. I'll be using here a text editor which is called Visual Studio Code. So it's this one, Visual Studio Code, which is an open source initiative supported by Microsoft. So this is a text editor that has all the basic functionality that we want to in this context. You can download it and have it as an application, but you can use whatever text editor that's of your preference. Let me just having it open here. I'm going to open let me just close this repository. I want to open another one. I want to have. I will do like this. If you are using Visual Studio Code, you can open the folder that we have created on Visual Studio Code because this is going to be useful to add those files. So let me go to Documents again, GitHub, OntoUML Developers, OntoUML Models, and we have created the file Wizardy 2020. Okay. Yes, I want to open this. Okay, I told it to open the file. I want to open the repository instead. So I have clicked here on the Explorer. I want to open a folder. I have it. I'm on the Wizardy 2020 already, so I'm selecting this folder. Yes, I trust the code here because I have just added it. So okay. On the reference.bib, we have to add the bibtech entry for these papers. I'm using this one from Google Scholar as reference, but this is not complete. I'm going to search for a better version because we have to have a proper citation entry. The citation entry does not give us information on the kind of on the event, the venue where this was published or anything like that. But this is a start. So let me just save this. On the metadata, this is the metadata that we have to collect on the paper that we are submitting. So We have an example here for this metadata that I'm going to use. So I'm just copying this and pasting to the other file. We have to update all of this information, by the way, so I'll do this in a second. And if you have questions on what each of those metadata information means, there is the explanation here for the metadata.yml. Let's now, if we go to the folder, we have created the reference.pip and the metadata.yml. We need to add the files for the ontology now and for diagrams, because we want to both have the screenshot of the original diagrams and new diagrams, the export of the new diagrams from the Visual Paradigm version of it as well. So let's go to the folder. Let's create these original diagrams, the new diagrams folders that we're going to use. So in here, okay, so I have to have original diagrams and new diagrams. So we can have now, and let's add the ontology already. So I'm going to put this to the right, this to the left. I will not be using this one for now. Let me get this here. Let me do this here. So just to, on this initial setup, I'm going to show you the process. The process consists on documenting the ontologies as they are here, and we must be as truthful to the original representation from the author as possible, because even in the positioning of these elements, we have some meaning that we must observe. Let me just delete these things that I have created before. So I'm deleting them. Yes. So it asks you if you want to delete both the view of the element and its version from the model as well sometimes. Okay, I'm going to delete all of this. And let's say that I want to document this ontology here. Let's do just a small part of it. So let's add here an agent. Let's add here the action. Let's create an association between the two of them. The agent is a category, and the action is an event. An event. And the relation here is of a participation. Okay. A participation is a participation of one agent in one-to-many actions. I will comment on some things here later as well. Observe that there are some information that's not available in the diagram itself. This information, if I have questions about it, I have to go into the text and double check what the author means. So in this case here, I know that this category agent is in gray because the red color is related to a specific kind of elements that we call substantials or objects in general. And agents in this sense probably concern more things. So if you have to change that information, something that you would go to right-click on agent, you'll go to meta properties, and you have to update this information of restrict ontological nature. So we are saying what possible instance of these classes are. So in this case, we only have functional complex, but we may say that collectives are also instance of agents, and in some cases some relators, but I have to check the text to be sure of that, but this would be the kind of reason why the agent class would be gray instead of red. By the way, just as we are here, notice that it's annoying that the label goes over the association, making it blank. So you can see. If you want to change that, you can right-click your diagram, go to Presentation Options, and you're going to see the option of, let me show you, it's Association, and let me just, okay, maybe it's Connector. Okay, you go to Connector, and there is the option of Paint Connector Through Label. If you enable this option, then we are not going to hide the association anymore with the labels. Okay, so just to finish the setup of the repository, I'm going to save this project that we are working on. So I'll using Ctrl S, but if you want to save, you can go to Project and Save as well. I'm going to the same folder that we were on, so Git, GitHub, OntoUML Developers, OntoUML Models, and Wizard 2020. We have to use the name that's agreed for this. So the name that we have agreed is ontologies.vp. Save it. I also have to export this to JSON. So I have it here on the dash menu because it's faster for me. So I'm going to select the destination documents, GitHub developers, OntoUML Models, Wizard 2020 core, and I'm going to name it ontology.json, so it's already set up. Okay, save it. Model export successfully, so we had no problems, no issues on the exporting process. I'm also going to export the diagrams, so I can come to either here to the option, but I can also show. Usually you have to go to Project, Export, and Diagrams as Image. You select the diagrams, you select the destination folder, so these diagrams are going to send them to the new diagrams folder. Okay, save this. And the quality, let's add this as PNG with background. Let's keep it with a high resolution, so 300 dpi. And if we click here, we are going to have a preview of the diagram that we are creating, and we just go to export. Okay, and finish this here. When we go to the folder now, we see all the files that we have created. The diagram, okay, I have made a mistake here in terms of the name of the folder, so let me just recreate this. So going here again, export, diagrams as image, and in the folder name, okay, so diagrams as image, I'm going to send this to new diagrams and not the new diagrams.jpg. Okay, finish. So the new diagrams, we have the diagram that we have just saved. By the way, the naming of this should be consistent. So let's rename this to, let me double check the standard that we are using. We are using diagram 1, 2, 3, and so on. So in here, call this diagram 1. It is in JPEG, so I have to correct that because we want to submit PNG files. So I'm going here. If we don't want to change all the time the name of the diagrams, you can go to the diagram that I have created and rename it just like we want this to be in the folder. So diagram 1, and when we export, it's going to have the name that we want it to have. Exports diagrams as image, and we want to reset up this as PNG with background, and we want a nice quality. Okay, export, and finish, and it's here now. The last thing that we have to do to finish this first step is to save a screenshot of this this diagram from the paper, so you can compare the original diagram that we use as reference with the diagram that we have documented on the tool. So, okay, if I have to double check here how to get a screenshot on PC, and it's okay. Let me just double check here. Yeah, I don't have this button on my keyboard, so let me check another option. The fact that it's in Italian is not helping. So let me just double check here. No, this is not an option.
Snapping tool, nome da ferramenta do Windows.
Okay, so I was told that there is a tool called the snapping tool. Okay, snipping tool.
Thank you, Pedro.
As I told you, questions and contributions are welcome on Discord. Okay, if I go back, so we have snipping tool, and I want to see the diagram again. Okay, so let's create a new one, and I want to have this area here. By the way, if you're going to save this, save the label as well. So, okay, let's probably save this as, let's find again the folder. So, documents, Git, GitHub, OntoUML developers, OntoUML models, Wizard 2020, original diagrams, and this is going to be, okay, diagram1.png. Okay, let's double check now on the folder, original diagrams, and we have the original diagram here as well. Okay, great. So, double checking what we have done so far, we have created a GitHub account, we have created a copy of it that we call fork on our personal GitHub from the original OntoUML Models repository. We have cloned it, we have copied it to our own machines. We have created a project on Visual Paradigm to document this, and we have added the basic information. So in here, let's say, in this case, we are dealing with the ontology on this, core ontology on this decision making. I will have to double check if this ontology has a specific name as well. In many cases they have. So let me add some information here. So this was created in 2020. I believe there was no update so far, but I would have to double check all of this information as I go through the documentation process. Core ontology on decision making. The domain here, let's say, I'm going to leave this information out for a moment because I don't want to introduce wrong information. Okay, so here, this. The language is English, so this I don't have to double check. The purpose is proper conceptual clarification. The context is research. The main source here, we are going to use the BB file entry for the paper. So as we remember, we are using for this paper 2020 core, and this is a set wizard. Oh, I'm in a different, it's not English, German, it's English. Okay, perfect. And the style is OntoUML, and we can later add a URL. So let's save this file, because I want to show you now again the GitHub client that we have used. So you remember that there was nothing here, and now we have a list of files that we are adding to, that we can add. So we have the YAML with the metadata that we have collected. We have the diagram from the visual paradigm. We have the JSON version of the ontology. We have the visual paradigm file for the ontology. We have the screenshot that we took from the original diagram, and the reference that we have collected. So in here, I'm going to, now I want to make what I have referred to as the commit, which is like creating a version, a snapshot of this folder, and sending it online to my repository. I can call this now, let's say, initial commit. So let's give you some clarify information here. So I want, let's say, initial commit, and this is for the Wizardy 2020 core paper. So I'm going to commit this to master. Remember, we are using here the our fork, our copy of the OntoUML Models repository. So we are in a safe space. If we make any mistakes, these mistakes are going to be on our version of the repository, and we are not going to cause damage to the original one. So I have clicked on commit to master, which is the branch that we are using. This is a concept of Git that I'm not going to go into right now, but we can see now in history this initial commit of ours, and what files we have changed. And we can see that there is like the push to origin. This is telling us, do you want to push these modifications to the to the original version of the repository on the GitHub website? So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to click here on push. Okay, perfect. So we are now synchronized with the online version. And if you go to the website, we go to our account. I'm just decrease the size a little bit. And let's just refresh the page. It's telling us that we are ahead of the UniBZ core version of it. We are going to continue this process, but if you have any questions, by the way, feel free to post them on Discord. And this is because this may be new to you all. I'm not ready with the documentation. The documentation, I have to go through the whole paper, documenting each class, its association, start type, all of this information as closely to the version from the published by the author as possible. But when I'm done with this process, we are going to do what's called a pull request, which is send our contribution back to the original repository, which is owned by the UniBZ core account. So this is the option that's giving me here. It's telling me that this branch that we are working on, so our copy, is one commit behind, but actually it's saying this one commit ahead of the original one that is behind, which is UniBZ core. We can come here and go to contribute to open a pull request. And this pull request is how we send back the contributions to the original version. And I'm going to click here to show you how it works. So in here, I'm opening the request to create this contribution. I'm coming from the, let's say, the modifications I made, they were on the branch that we call master. Here, so this is where I'm coming from. I'm coming from the OntoUML developers, OntoUML Models master. And we are sending this to we are asking to send these contributions to UniBZ Core master as well. And this is the modifications. We are changing 6 files and we have only a single commit, which is the initial one that we have created. And we can create this pull request. It's going to ask us to give some information on it. So please give some information explaining what is your contribution. So these contributions is what add wizard to end-to-end. I can give you the name of the ontology, which is more representative here. Add core ontology. Let me just double check that on decision making. Ontology on decision making. Okay, so you can say here something like this pull request adds the ontology published in the paper, let's say here, go back to, okay, in the paper, nope, it's the wrong information. I want to get the title first. Okay, so I can copy the title, I can come here and paste the title, decision making. I can even give some more complex information, like I can give the URL to the paper itself. So I can I can select the text, click on the add link option, and I can just paste the URL. If I want to see how this, by the way, uses Markdown. If you're familiar with it, you can see how this is going to be shown in the website. You can also correct this information later. And then you create your pull request once you are done with it. Because as you create the pull request, this becomes a space for you and the maintainers of the UniBZ Core repository to interact and get the contribution to the point where it's correct. So when you do this, the maintainers of the UniBZ Core repository, they are able to see your files of your contribution, check if there is anything wrong here, and ask you to make modifications if necessary, and they will be able to accept your contribution and make it part of the main repository. So in here, you are going to, once you make this contribution, you will have, if you have to make new commits, they are going to be shown here as well. But let's say that some maintainer comes here, wants to say, this, your contribution is yet, okay, so let's just come here. Okay, let's see, pull request. Okay, your contribution is yet incomplete. Please finishing documenting the ontology. By the way, this is not the kind of comments that you're going to get, but this is at the point that you have finished the documentation. So just to show you how these comments they appear. So in the, if someone wants to comment on your contribution, the comments from the reviewers, the maintainers, are going to appear as a conversation. This is going to be documented here, and once everything is ready, they are going to accept this and make it part of the whole code. I can come here. I'm going to delete this comment of mine because it's not relevant. But just to show you how this process works, I will come here to. By the way, all of these pull requests, they are available on this under this pull requests tab of the original repository. I'm going to see a closed pull request. Let's say this one on normative acts ontology. In this here we have a commit created, pull request created, and then the comments from the reviewers asking for modifications. Then the process of making a modification is just a new commit. It's just you go to the file, you make the modification, you create a new commit, you push this online, and then you have a new version where the reviewer can add new comments up to the point where it is approved, and when it's approved, it's merged into the actual main repository. Okay, so these are the first steps. If you have questions, we are available today on Discord, and we are going to be available throughout in the future as well. If you want to submit questions, you have the issues tab, where you can create a new issue with a question, with a suggestion, with a bug that you have found, or something like that, of that nature. And you can, if you're seeing this online, probably this is going to be on YouTube, use the comment section as well. Questions from the audience on Discord? If you want me to go into details on some of the steps that we have seen so far, improving the usability on Visual Paradigm, I can see if there is some hints here. Okay, so by now, I consider that this process is, this initial tutorial is concluded. I'm going to use now some time, I believe some 10 minutes or so, just to show you how I like to set up my own environment that I work with. So I'm just adding, I'm just going to add some tips. And if you have questions on how to use Visual Paradigm as well, please, you're welcome to do so on the Discord. So let me check here. Okay. So let me show you some things that I like to do to make my life a little bit easier on Visual Paradigm. So okay, first of all, when I work, I don't work. Let's say okay. Let me just double check one thing here. Yeah. So when I come to Visual Paradigm, I like to set up some things to make my life easier. As I already said, that I use this dash menu, I update this with the options that I like to access more often. For instance, some things that I use quite often are on view. I like to show the grid. I don't know why. Okay, you see now I have clicked here on grid. I'm showing now a grid which is easier for me to align things on the model. Even though there is this option, I can use the grid as well. I think this tab here to the left, it takes a lot of space, but it may be useful to you to have the names, but I like to hide the names. So I right click and I go to show name and I hide this. I like to, when I'm working, I don't like to work with my classes at the root of the repository. So the first thing that I do is to create a package to include things. So in this case here, I just create a this is not necessary for this paper because this paper does not have packages, but I create this package to organize myself. So this is the core ontology on decision making. I move my elements to this repository. Okay. And the nice thing here is that I can right click, I can go to sub diagrams and add my diagrams here to the package. So they are visible in the same place. I don't have to have the diagram navigator and the model navigator. I can just have one of them. I don't like to see the associations here because it's too much information. Usually for me just the classes are enough, so I disable this option. Something nice to show you is how to create the derivation link between the association and the class. So let's say that I have a relator. Let me check if in the paper there is some example of relator. So if I check here, not in this diagram, not in this diagram, not in this diagram either. This is a different element they used. So if I come here to the paradigm again, let me give you an example of where we have person, university, and I have enrollment. I want to say that a person studies at a university, so I can double click the association to give it a name. So studies at. These two classes here, they are kinds in this example that I'm making out of my mind. The studies that I'm going to create as a material relation. So okay. And the enrollment here, by the way, I want to align this thing. So sometimes I just copy and paste element, I centralize this, and I use it as reference to centralize the one below as well. And I delete it as that afterwards. So delete this. Okay. The enrollment is, in this case, a relator here between the two. Relator. And I want to say that now the relator, there's a derivation relation between these two guys. So in this, we use the UML element called association class. It's this one here. If I show the name again, you can see association class. I will click on the association and drag until the enrollment. So now I have the derivation. Okay. I am using some basic setup here. So by the way, if I go to settings, I have both smart painting and smart modeling enabled. So these two things, they guarantee some basic properties of the model. So if I come here, let's say that I create here the class of student, and I make it a row. Having those two options enabled make it so that the plugin is able to do two things. Let me just open it here. The plugin is able to make person restricted to functional complex, which is like it's a mandatory option. Kinds can only be have as instance functional complex, which you call in other places as we refer to as objects as well. The thing is that the row must inherit this property from the kind, and having the smart modeling enabled allows us to do that automatically, so I don't have to do that by hand. You just get from the parent. And also this allows us to have the coloring of red, yellow, green, all of these different shadings. This is done automatically. I don't have to set up these things by hand. Okay. So by the way, if I see that there are too many things and I want to deal with a large diagram, sometimes I come to view as well when I go to full screen, which is useful. If I want to go back, I just go again to view and I disable it. And if you are using things like the verification of models, the messages are going to appear on this letter to the bottom here. So, okay, in this case, there were no syntactical issues found for the constraints implemented so far. Okay, besides this, I do like to use here the Visual Studio Code to handle the files that we are using. One file that and there are many extensions to Visual Studio Code to handle these files like YAML. YAML, if you see like the colors here and the rendering, this is already an extension that's installed by default. You can also have other extensions like for the BB file. I can install if you come here to extensions, you can install the LaTeX workshop. Yes, and these are going to give us some nice features like syntax highlighting and stuff like that. Installing now. Okay, so we see like there is some syntax highlighting. I have some autocomplete as well. I can do some alignment automatically. So I can come here and do the alignment automatically, and so on. So okay, these are the basic hints and tips and guides for contributing to the OntoUML project, OntoUML Models project. If you are here, I thank you very much for your presence and your interest to contribute back to the community. The community thanks you a lot, and we hope to enable a lot of research with OntoUML with this whole process. And if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, please do so. We will be happy to interact with you in today and in the future as well. Have a nice day and have a nice hackathon.